But you will not become what you want. You will become who you believe to be. You're only going to fit the narrative you have built for yourself. Hi everyone, my name is Gigi and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about the law of assumption. I first learnt about this when I was going through my learning phase, my building myself phase of my self-development journey. This was the phase where I was trying to take in as much information as possible on how I can change my mindset. And when I found the lectures from Brian Tracy, basically exploring everything to do with mindset and the laws to changing the way that you think, laws of assumption was one of the biggest one that genuinely changed how I saw myself, how I saw my life. So I really want to explore it today with you guys and share also the lectures that I saw that really helped when I was beginning my self-development journey. So what is the law of assumption? Because that title alone doesn't really give a whole lot of information. The law of assumption is the idea that when you believe something to be true, you assume something to be a fact about yourself or a fact about your life, it is the truth. The law of assumption is often linked very closely to manifestation because manifestation is the idea of putting something out into the universe and the universe bringing it back to you. Basically, what you believe you want to come true will come true to you because you believe it will. And that is what the law of assumption is all about. What you believe to be true is the truth to you. Now, I'm assuming a lot of you are sitting there right now watching this video up until this point thinking, well, how do I do that? How do I just believe something about myself? But you're already doing it without even realizing. Right now, as you're sitting here, you probably believe already that you're the person that doesn't really get lucky in life. You're the depressed friend, the shy friend, the non-confident friend, that you can't do a specific thing that you really want to do, that you're not as smart as some of the people around you or who you see on the internet. Those are assumptions about yourself. They are things that you have told yourself, found the outward proof to prove it to yourself, and so you believe it to be true. That is exactly how the opposite works. You believe yourself to be confident, outgoing, smart, and so it becomes the truth. You assume that you are a certain way, so you begin to act in that way. You begin to search outwardly, externally, to prove you are that way. And because you look for it, you find proof of it, and then you are. You're literally constantly making assumptions about yourself. From the moment you were born, from the moment you gained consciousness, from the moment you were able to look at the world around you and take in information, you were already making assumptions. Assumptions about who you are, what you're capable of, how people should treat you, what kind of relationships you have and what relationships you deserve, how disciplined you are, how motivated you are. You have constantly, your entire life, made assumptions about who you are as a person and what the world thinks of you. And that is because you believe what you're seeing. You believe what you're telling yourself. You believe the assumptions you've made. But you don't become the person you want to be. You become the person you believe to be. Because you can want something your whole entire life and say to people and manifest it, I want. But you will not become what you want. You will become who you believe to be. Because once you believe it, you will start to act like the person that has the things that you want. To put it plainly, you don't just get to a certain point in your life and suddenly get everything that you want. You get to a certain point where you believe enough in yourself that you are what you want. And when it comes to manifestation will never work if you don't believe you should receive, or you don't believe you can do, or you don't believe you can finally get to the goal that you want. Your manifestations will only come true once you believe them to be true, once you believe you can get to a certain goal, once you believe you can be a certain type of person. And when you believe you can, you will be. Now, the law of assumption and the law of attraction tend to get a little bit mixed up sometimes just because there is a little bit of overlap with the two of them. The law of attraction is more about you want to bring something into your life. You want to manifest something like, I want a lot of money. I want a new car. I want more friends. But the idea of the law of assumption is that you already are those things. For example, you are a popular person. You are a confident person. You are a millionaire. You have the dream car you want. While the law of attraction is about becoming the person who receives those things, the law of assumption is believing you already are the person that receives those things. Now, the reason the law of assumption is so incredibly important when you're going on this journey to become the better version of yourself is it's quite literally putting you on the trajectory to be the better version of yourself. This is where things truly changed for me, because rather than constantly saying, I'm the shy person, I'm not confident, I'm really insecure, I have anxiety, I have depression, I can't do this, I can't do that. Simply by changing the way that I spoke about myself and the assumptions that I made about my own personality, who I was as a person, and then also what I believed other people to assume about me, I completely changed the way that I looked at the entire world around me and also who I was on the inside. I went from making assumptions such as, I could never do that, things like this don't happen to me, I will never be rich, I will never be able to do that or this, or have more friends, or do big travels that I wanted to do, to I am the person that achieves those things. I am confident. I don't have anxiety. I don't have depression. And just by making that switch from assuming I'm one thing to assuming I'm another, my life changed. Because I was no longer acting like the assumed person I was, or who I thought I was. Instead, when I assumed that I was confident, I was outgoing, I was able to achieve my goals, I started acting in the ways that version of myself who achieved those things, who was those things, would act. You can believe two different things. The same exact person, for example, can walk into a room and believe everyone's gonna judge me. And when they walk into that room, what are they gonna think when people look at them? Everyone's looking at me, everyone's judging me. Is there something wrong with my outfit? Do I have something on my face? Like, why is everyone looking at me? But if that exact person walked into that exact same room with the exact same people, but instead thought, everyone thinks I'm great, everyone thinks I'm beautiful, everyone thinks I'm a really good person. When they walk into that room, rather than feeling judged and like they're on a big stage in front of everyone and they don't know how to act and they're really nervous, they're gonna walk into that room and feel great. Everyone's looking at me because everyone likes me. They're not going to second guess why people are looking at them. They're not going to second guess, are these people looking at me because they don't like me? Are they judging me? Because they've assumed already, just like the person who assumed everyone was going to judge them, that they are a good person, that they are confident, that people aren't judging them. There was no difference in those scenarios apart from one thing: what the person walking into the room thought and assumed about themselves. What you believe to be true is the truth. And that is so important to remember, that you are in control of what you believe about yourself. Now, one of the biggest things that I used to use to kind of confirm what I used to believe about myself is the proof I found externally. Now, I mentioned this before in the beginning, but a lot of people use the excuse for believing them to be a certain way about themselves because of what they've been told or the experiences that they have experienced externally. For example, using the situation I just mentioned before about walking into a room, if you're already feeling anxious and insecure about yourself and you assume that about yourself, you believe it to be true about yourself, when you walk into a room, you're going to believe when people turn to look at you that it's because something is wrong. There's something on your face. Your hair is sticking up and you didn't realize. And you're going to feel more insecure. That is you looking for proof to validate what you already believe to be true about yourself. You're not going to walk into that room if you're really anxious and you believe you are an anxious person and think everyone's looking at you because they just noticed you walked in, or they think that your outfit is beautiful, or they like your hair. You're only going to fit the narrative you have built for yourself. But that works both ways. I've mentioned before in other videos, but you will only notice what fits in with your beliefs. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you're a very negative person, you're only going to notice the negative things in life because what you believe in yourself is what you attract in your life. If you're a negative person, you're going to attract negative people in your life. But if you're a positive person, you're going to attract more positive things and more positive people in your life. It is the exact same thing when you are assuming things about yourself and when you're assuming things about the situations and the people around you. Does it mean it's the truth? Does it mean that the people in that room are thinking those things about you? No, but that doesn't necessarily matter when you're thinking about yourself, because your reality changes depending on what you think. Because again, you can't go around to every single person in that room and go, what did you think about me when I just walked in right there? Did you think, were you judging me or were you being nice? That's just not the reality of life. So why does this matter when it comes to being the better version of yourself and building a better life for yourself? What you assume to be true about yourself and your life will change how you act. And this is the most important part. If you believe that you are a shy person, you will act like a shy person. If you assume you are a very negative person, that very bad things happen to you, that is exactly what you will attract into your life, because you already believe, you assume these things are going to happen to you because of the type of person you assume to be, they will happen. However, if you assume that you're a very positive person and that very positive things surround you, they will, because you will act accordingly to how you feel about yourself. Thinking back to when I was younger and I used to be a very insecure person, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. A lot of that area, that time period of my life was surrounded by a lot of very negative things. I did a lot of very silly things because I thought that because I was a shy person, I couldn't go out places. Because I was so depressed, I couldn't get out of my depression. So I fed into those things rather than believing I could get out of those things. Because of that, I spent so much longer in this time period of my life, in this mindset that I had, simply because I kept acting like the person I thought I was. And I believed there was no change because I assumed that was just who I was. You cannot say that you are a confident person while acting like an insecure person. You cannot say you are someone that loves yourself while actively acting like someone who doesn't. Your actions have to match your words, and if they don't, you are not confident. You do not love yourself. So by assuming you already are, you begin to act like you are. Now this might confuse some people because I just said, well, I can call myself confident, but then I'm not immediately going to act like it. That is not the same thing as assuming you are. Simply by saying, I'm confident, doesn't mean you actually believe that. But assuming you are something is the belief that you are something. So if you wake up one day and you decide, you know what, I am so done, and this is what happened to me. I sat there, I thought about my life, and I said, I am so done of living that way. I have spent years of my life putting myself down, missing opportunities, losing friends, doing this and not getting anywhere. And I have had enough. So I literally sat down with myself, almost talked to myself as though the new version of me and the old version of me were literally having a conversation. And I sat there and I said, no, I am confident. And I began every single day pushing myself further and further until I became confident, until it was no longer an act. It was no longer forcing myself. I just did it because I believed it to be who I was. I assumed, I made the assumption that I was a confident person. Now, a lot of people will hate online at the law of assumption, mainly because they believe that it's a whole lot of acting. It's a whole lot of pretending to be someone who you're not. And they believe that goes directly against being true to yourself. But what they fail to realize is that this is not about acting. It is about assuming you are a different version of yourself. Now, no offense to anyone who doesn't believe in this, but at the end of the day, I would much rather believe that I am a more confident person, that I am a more outgoing person, that I don't hate myself and I love myself, that I can do whatever I dream of, rather than being the person that doesn't. And I'd much rather tell myself that I am those things and then start acting like that, rather than saying that I shouldn't even try and I don't care about it and I should just live until something changes. You're not pretending to be someone different. You are you. You're just acting like the version of yourself that you want to be, the person that achieves your goals. You already have those goals, and if what you wanted wasn't you, you wouldn't have those goals. So no, this is not about becoming someone you've seen online. It's not about pretending and losing yourself because of it. It's about becoming. And to do that, you have to have action. And to have action, you have to do the things that the better version of you would do. And those things might be completely different to what you're doing right now. You might have swore down your whole life you're not a morning person and you can only wake up at 1 p.m. But then you start waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Of course, that's going to seem insane because before you assumed, which everyone else assumed, you were not a morning person. And now you're doing the opposite. Of course, it's going to seem against your character, but that is because that is the character you have built for yourself and what you have shown everyone else. Now, you're assuming to be a better version of yourself. And because of that, you're acting like the better version of yourself. The thing is you're not acting like a millionaire while you have 14 euros in your bank account. You're not going to spend and buy big mansions and houses just because you want to be a millionaire when you have less than a month's salary in your bank account. But to believe you are a millionaire already means you're going to have the mindset of a millionaire. What are millionaires doing to make that money? When you have the mindset and you have the discipline and you have the motivation, guess what happens? You will make more money. Because if you believe you are something, you adapt the mindset of that thing and then you become it. To put it as plainly and as simply as possible, at first you must be who you want to be. You must believe that you are that person that makes that money, that is confident. Then you do. You do the things that relate to that identity. You have the motivation to keep going every day. You have the discipline to keep going when the motivation dies. And then you have the things that you wanted. You've built the company you wanted. You build the bank account you wanted. You have and achieved the goals that you wanted. All because you believed you are. You acted as though you are because you believe you are. And then you achieved because you are. So now you understand what the law of assumption is. How do you actually use the law of assumption in your life? The first step is to decide who you want to become. Now, I'm not sitting there and saying, I want this, I want that, I want lots of money, I want to have a big successful business, I want a family, I want to be more confident. You're going to ask yourself who that type of person is that achieves those things. Who is the version of you that achieves the big business, that achieves becoming a millionaire, that achieves becoming more confident? The second step is to identify what you're currently saying about yourself, what your current assumptions are. If you realize that you keep saying to yourself that you're shy, that you hate your life, that you're not confident, that you're very depressed, that you're very anxious, that you can't go outside, understand that you say these things about yourself and then change it, which is step 3. Replace your current assumptions, the ones that I just mentioned, with your new assumptions. You've identified the person you need to be to achieve your goals. So who is that person? I am smart. I am successful. I am confident. I am beautiful. Step 4 is to prove it to yourself. Start putting yourself in situations where you act like who you want to be, where you act like the person who achieves your goals. For example, when you walk into a room, rather than believing people are going to judge you, believing they're actually looking at you because they like you, because they like your outfit, because they believe you're beautiful, because they think you're interesting. Do the things that the person you believe you are will do. If you believe you are the person that will become a millionaire, stop sitting on your phone. Stop procrastinating. Stop putting things off until the next day. Be disciplined, be motivated, create a good routine that you will not stop and you know you will stay on. And the best part, this works. Because this is exactly what I did. I looked at the way that I spoke about myself, who I thought I was, who I assumed myself to be, and I decided, no, that's not me anymore. And I asked myself, who is the person, who is the version of me that achieves what she actually wants? And it didn't match up. The version of myself that I was didn't match the version of myself that got what I wanted. So I changed and I did all of these steps. And because of that, I'm where I am today. That old version of me wouldn't have even imagined I would be where I am right now. And that's all the proof that you need. You can literally look at any person who does the same type of content and they will tell you that because they started to believe they could do these things, because they started to change what they assumed about themselves and their lives and everyone around them, it became true. And their whole life changed. They did things they never even imagined doing before. That's all from me today. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to comment down below and I will try and get back to every single comment. Don't forget to subscribe and I will see you in the next one. Bye.